Appian software runs important processes at major organizations across the world. And with our process software comes a digital workforce. And that digital workforce has become far more powerful in the last few years with the inclusion of AI.
What were you, okay, let me go back a stage. You support end-to-end processes for all kinds of institutions, financial institutions, especially here in the United Kingdom?
Definitely. Insurance, pharmaceutical, public sector. That's correct.
Right, okay, let me go back a stage further and just ask you what you were doing to help these companies before everyone got excited about AI and what you're doing now. And I made that point about getting excited about AI because AI has been around a long time. Everyone just suddenly thinks it turned up with NVIDIA a year ago.
We've been selling it for a decade.
Yeah.
But before AI got hot, we were helping organizations run unique processes inside the bounds of their walls. Every organization has unique processes that evolve over time that define the reputation of their firm, and that's exactly what we were doing.
Matt, in terms of the benefits for your clients, I would imagine if I were an institution or a financial institution, I would imagine I would be under enormous pressure to get myself an AI product. Get me AI exposure so I can put on my executive summary when I do my results, I have AI capability. Is there a bit of a kind of a gold rush going on?
There is, but it's countered by a bit of fear as well. We worry about AI, especially CEOs worry about it, because AI has been shown to the capability of embarrassing organizations or compromising their data assets. And so there's a trepidation around AI, even though there's at the same time a desire to benefit from it. I think what we're all looking for is a safe way to make the first step with AI, and that's partly what we're trying to do.
I want to talk about safety and regulation in a moment, but I also want to talk about profitable usage. Mm-hmm. Tell me about the companies who are a little bit panicky about this, or are they're going hell for leather, but do they know what they're buying?
Yeah, actually, I think most companies are being cautious, and yeah, that's right. A few
that's
of them are going hell for leather, right? You see that amongst the big tech firms, right? Microsoft, Amazon, Google, they're all spending like there's no tomorrow. They can afford to do it.
But when one of them spends, and I think it was yesterday we were talking about Amazon with their supercomputers making a $100 billion bet.
With the neutraniums.
Most companies making a $100 billion bet, it would be ruinous if it went wrong.
Yeah.
If Amazon makes
they can afford
and it just goes okay, we're talking about a $2.5 trillion company here. It's a calculated risk, isn't it?
It is, and it's a wise risk. They should be doing this. They're in a position to, and no matter what AI turns up, whether it's spades or clubs, they should be making this bet. Those companies that are in a position to do it are doing it. And for the rest of us, I think most of the economy is being cautious and taking a step at a time. If you see the typical surge of investment that precedes real productivity enhancement, we have not seen that level of investment with AI today. We're seeing instead a much more cautious approach. There'll be time though.
When people talk about regulation of AI, they very often don't know what they're talking about. Well, I listen to UK politicians talking about we need regulation on AI. Do they mean because it's going to beat mankind up, it's going to be some form of kind of, Terminator type situation? Do they mean actually privacy rights? Do they mean intellectual property right? They don't know. There's about 10 different areas of AI regulation. Just hone it down for us about what is really needed.
The primary ways we could regulate AI, first of all, are at the manufacturer level. We could say, guarantee for us that this AI will never cause any harm. That's what California Bill 1047 would have done, the one that got vetoed.
Sandboxes?
And that just doesn't make sense. It just wouldn't work.
The fail-safe switch, the big red button where we can turn it off?
No, it's a silly consideration.
Yeah.
That's not what's going to work for us, and you can't ask the manufacturer any more than you could ask a knife manufacturer to be sure nobody ever get cut with the knife they make. AI is going to be inherently somewhat dangerous if misused. It just is, and you can't regulate against that. The second thing you could do is regulate against the use of AI. This is what the European AI Act does. For example, it says the way you're using AI is going to be more or less subject to regulation depending on the risk of the application. If AI is in charge of whether somebody gets a job or a mortgage, then we're going to put more scrutiny on it than if the AI is in charge of something trivial like answering your questions, right? So you can also regulate it at that point. And then the third way you could regulate AI is according to what data it's allowed to take. Is it allowed to take the contents of this broadcast and then give that to somebody who didn't, let's say, pay to watch or see the commercials? Is it allowed to take intellectual property, an article that you've written, a book that I've written? Is it allowed to take that and then convey the contents to somebody else. So those are the three legs of the regulation stool. I'd say so far we've put a lot of thought into catastrophic outcomes. Not saying it's wrong, but we've put a lot of thought into that, maybe too much. We've regulated more on, not nearly enough on the privacy of personal content, intellectual property, private data, personally identifiable information. We've almost ignored it worldwide. There's very little of that going on. So regulation is semi-informed and incomplete worldwide.
Matt, I will go back to catastrophic outcomes because there has been periodic calls from many within the industry to pause or slow down the training of these supercomputers, or to kind of just hold off on allowing the AGI, the large language models, to just get bigger and bigger and smarter and smarter and smarter. Yeah. What are those people worried about if we shouldn't be so worried about the catastrophic outcomes?
And I'm not saying we should never worry about them, because maybe someday we should be. Today, though, catastrophic outcome is not the #1 risk in AI. The #1 risk is personal property infringement and the taking of intellectual property that belongs to people.
Outcome by design from a bad actor, because
that is the more likely near-term scenario. Using AI to cause harm intentionally. And that could be in a military situation.
North Korea, coming from an unfriendly state.
Yes.
But that's a very real concern, isn't it? We've all seen the attacks on the security systems, cyber attacks on the US banks. It was famous from a couple of years ago, on big US institutions. I think the Pentagon is attacked thousands of times every minute.
AI is sure to be used as a weapon, unfortunately. And there's not, our regulations aren't stopping that. Someone who would be willing to use AI as a weapon is not going to be stopped by the regulations that have been put in place.
Let me ask one more question. Trump administration's coming in as well, all kinds of concerns about trade wars as well.
Right.
Don't we need the Chinese and the Americans to be on the same page? And I just can't believe in a million years they are going to be.
They're just not going to be. Trump's priorities are a little bit of a guess to anybody, but they're definitely going to include competition with China, deregulation generally of AI, the removal of regulatory overhead, a complete abandonment of the misinformation, disinformation, bias campaign that was of interest previously around AI, and then, because of Elon, a worry about the catastrophic outcomes.
Do we worry more? Here's a question for you. Do we worry more about private sector actors or public sector actors?
I'd be more worried about public sector actors. I think there's a greater threat. And I think also public sector actors are more capable of putting a collar around AI and using it to do something truly dangerous.
I'm going to ask you one more. Sorry, Matt. Do you worry about Musk's influence?
I actually think it's going to be a positive thing because he's deeply informed about AI. I may disagree or agree with him on different issues, but at least there's someone in this administration, unlike the prior administration, who really knows AI and has a firm viewpoint about what can be done and what the threats are.
That's a very